Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
Today we're plunging into, well, a really fascinating part of the Warhammer 40,000 universe. It's one that seems almost contradictory when you first look at it.
Definitely. You mean the Astra Militarum?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or, as most people probably know them, the Imperial Guard.
Yeah.
We've been digging through the Astra Militarum, Hammer of the Emperor, plus a load of other lore bits and, tabletop discussions.
Good stuff in there.
Yeah, and our mission really is to figure out how these soldiers, who are basically just ordinary humans in a galaxy packed with superhumans, and frankly, terrifying tech, how they end up being the Imperium's main fighting force.
It's a key question. How do they manage? Especially when their whole deal seems to be about, well, mass sacrifice.
Right, so get ready because we're hoping to dig up some surprising facts and maybe some real insights here.
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Who exactly are the Astra Militarum? We hear Imperial Guard all the time. What makes them the primary force in this grim, dark future?
Well, that's kind of the point, isn't it? They aren't like the Space Marines, the genetically boosted super soldiers.
Right, no gene seed there.
No, none of that. And they're not like the Adeptus Mechanicus with all their weird tech and augmentations. The Guard are, well, they're just people, regular men and women, recruited from worlds all across the Imperium.
So equipped with standard gear, like where?
Pretty much. Their main weapon is the lasgun. Think of it as a powerful laser rifle, very reliable, and the classic bayonet for close encounters.
Which must happen a lot.
Oh, constantly.
Yeah.
But their defining thing is that they aren't superhuman. They make up for that lack of individual power with two things. Just absolutely staggering numbers.
Mind-boggling numbers, I've heard.
Yeah, truly. And the second is dependable equipment, and maybe most importantly, their sheer grit, their spirit.
So if Space Marines are like a surgeon's scalpel, really precise, the Guard sounds more like a sledgehammer. Is that fair? Are they really the main force, not just backup?
Absolutely. Sledgehammer is a good way to put it. Or maybe an avalanche. Space Marines might be the tip of the spear, doing the surgical strikes or the really tough initial assaults. Some sources call it the donkey work of conquest.
Ah, okay.
But it's the Astra Militarum, the Guard, who provide the massive ground forces. They're the ones who actually hold the line, occupy territory, and just overwhelm the enemy through sheer weight.
So they're strategically vital then, not just cannon fodder.
Absolutely vital. They're the Imperium's first line of defense and often its primary means of attack across the galaxy. Their presence can just grind down enemies through attrition, even really powerful ones. Think about the Battle of Malek. Their numbers caused huge losses, even to other Space Marine chapters.
Wow.
And historically, look at something like the Illinor Crusade. That was a massive Imperial Guard campaign, a huge victory that basically smashed a giant Orc empire. That was the Guard doing the heavy lifting on a galactic scale.
That's just, the scale is hard to grasp. How do they even manage the logistics, moving that many troops and supplies across space?
Well, managed might be generous. It's a testament to the Imperium's sheer scale, and it's often brutal bureaucracy. Planets are tied. They have to provide soldiers and material.
Like a tax, but with people.
Exactly. And these regiments get shipped off, sometimes on journeys that take centuries through the warp to whatever hellhole needs bodies. It's less about efficiency and more about relentless industrial-scale mobilization and a pretty terrifying disregard for individual lives. Entire generations on some worlds are just drafted.
Okay, and this is where it gets, as you say, really grim. I remember reading that quote, "Guardsmen die, that's what they're here for." That sounds unbelievably harsh. What does that actually mean in practice?
It's stark, yeah, but it's core to their doctrine. It's not just cynicism. It's a strategic necessity for the Imperium. When you're up against, literal demons or Tyranid swarms that blot out the sun or chaos legions.
Yeah, the threats are insane.
Exactly. Individual human life, tragically, becomes a resource, a necessary expenditure to buy time, hold ground, draw enemy fire, reveal positions for the big guns. It's this grim calculus. A guardsman charging a machine gun nest might know they won't make it.
But their death achieves something tactical.
Precisely. It might deplete enemy ammo or allow the tanks to get a firing solution. Without that willingness to trade lives on a massive scale, the Imperium probably wouldn't exist anymore. It's built on that foundation of sacrifice.
And to make sure that sacrifice happens, to keep ordinary people charging into, well, hell, you have the commissars, These sort of Soviet-looking officers, what's their deal?
Right, the commissars. They're more than just discipline officers. They're political officers, ideologues. They embody the emperor's will on the battlefield. Their job is to maintain morale, ensure loyalty, and enforce that doctrine of absolute obedience no matter the cost.
By any means necessary, I've heard stories.
Oh yeah. If a unit breaks, if an officer hesitates, the commissar is there to make an example. Often that means summary execution, right there on the firing line. It's brutal.
Sounds terrifying for the guardsmen themselves.
It is. But from the Imperium's perspective, it's necessary. The alternative is collapse. And despite this view of them being expendable, it's precisely because they can be deployed in such numbers and forced to hold the line through this iron discipline that they're so powerful collectively.
So it's a paradox. Individually weak, collectively strong, because of, or maybe despite, this harshness.
That's a good way to put it. And if you really want to get inside the head of a guardsman, see the human side of it, the heroism amidst the horror, you should check out Dan Abnett's Gaunt's Ghosts series. It's fantastic for showing these normal people facing impossible odds.
I'll add that to the list. Okay,
Oh.
so it sounds like a completely awful way to exist, but somehow they're the Imperium's backbone. Which brings us to, how? What are their actual strengths on the battlefield, both in the stories and, say, on the tabletop?
Right, and this is where their design, both in lore and game terms, is actually pretty clever. Their strengths are clear. First, as we said, numbers, just overwhelming numbers. You can field, bucketfuls of infantry squads.
Drown the enemy in bodies.
Literally. Second, they're masters of combined arms. They don't rely on just one thing. It's about infantry, tanks, artillery, maybe even flyers all working together. That synergy is crucial.
So tanks providing cover while infantry moves up, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Picture the Lehman Russ battle tank, which is just an awesome, iconic piece of kit. A real heavy hitter laying down fire, maybe suppressing a key enemy unit.
Yeah, those things look tough.
They are. And while it's doing that, your infantry squads push forward to grab objectives, maybe screened by the tank.
Yeah.
And then you've got your basilisks or manticores way in the back, raining down artillery fire. It's about the whole picture.
And I guess leadership is key to coordinating all that.
Hugely important. Those support units, the sergeants, the commanders, even the commissars, in a way, they give out orders, provide buffs, make the whole machine work, and there's a weird kind of resilience, too. Not individual toughness, but collectively. Some rules even let you bring back destroyed squads as reinforcements. The tide just keeps coming.
Okay, but there have to be weaknesses, right? If individual soldiers are that fragile, what are the downsides, especially if you're playing them in the game?
Oh, definitely downsides. The individual vulnerability is massive. Your basic guardsman model, well, it doesn't hit very hard, and it dies really easily compared to most other factions' troops.
Las guns aren't that scary individually.
Not really, not against heavily armored stuff. You need
Yeah.
lots of them firing together, massed fire doctrine. They can also be pretty inaccurate statistically. And they're generally not great in melee, in close combat. You don't want your guard squads getting charged by Khorne berserkers.
No, I imagine not.
And that reliance on characters for buffs, that's a double-edged sword. Your officers are vital, but they're often what players call squishy.
Easy to kill.
Yeah, vulnerable. Snipers love targeting guard officers. And losing one can really mess up your plans. Plus, they take up valuable slots in your army list, like HQ or elite slots, that you could be using for other things.
And mobility. Are they fast?
Generally, no. They're often quite slow. Infantry platoons trudging across the board. This makes them vulnerable to fast-moving enemy units that can get around their flanks or hit their back lines quickly.
So it sounds like a real challenge then. If your main troops are kind of weak and slow individually, how do you actually play them effectively on the tabletop? What's the strategy?
It requires a very different mindset, definitely. You're not playing with elite super soldiers. You have to embrace the guard philosophy. That means fielding loads of infantry, loads.
Just flood the board.
Pretty much. You accept that you will lose squads. Lots of them. That's part of the plan. You use those infantry squads to screen your valuable units, to tie up enemy forces, and most importantly, to stand on objectives and score points.
So they're like a living shield and objective grabbers.
Exactly. While your heavy hitters, the tank commanders and their Leman Russes, the big artillery pieces like Manticores, maybe some fast Kezarkan or Scions for surgical strikes, do the real damage from a distance or in key assaults.
And the orders mechanic is key here too, right?
Right. Absolutely. Issuing the right orders at the right time is crucial. You might order a squad to take aim to improve their shooting before they unload, or move to get them onto an objective faster, even knowing they might get shot to pieces next turn. It's all about achieving the mission, even at great cost.
So it really does come back to that grim idea, winning by drowning the enemy in a sea of their broken, bloody bodies.
That quote really captures the tabletop experience sometimes, yeah. It's this constant balancing act. Cheap, expendable infantry doing the dirty work, holding objectives, screening, while your powerful but fewer tanks and guns provide the killing blow.
It sounds fascinating, actually, the way the lore translates so directly into the gameplay.
It really is. And it forces you, as the player, to confront that core theme. What does it mean to command a force where victory often demands calculated, sometimes massive casualties? It's a strategic depth you don't find in every faction.
Well, that's certainly given us a lot to think about. A real deep dive into the Astra Militarum, the Imperial Guard. We've seen how they really embody being the hammer of the Imperium.
Yeah, not through superpowers, but through numbers, grit, combined arms, and just the sheer resilience of ordinary humans pushed to the absolute limit.
Their story is definitely one of determination against, frankly, unimaginable odds.
Absolutely.
So maybe the final thought for you, listening, is this. What does the Astra Militarum's whole deal, these countless regular people facing down cosmic horrors, their acceptance of sacrifice, what does that suggest about, I don't know, collective strength? Or maybe the true, often brutal cost of maintaining order on such a vast scale?
Definitely something to chew on.
It is indeed. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the Imperial Guard.
My pleasure.
If you enjoy this exploration, please do share it with anyone you know who's into sci-fi, military stuff, or just a really compelling, if dark, story.
Yeah, spread the word.
And of course, subscribe to the Deep Dive so you don't miss our next exploration into another complex topic. Thanks again for listening.